And yes, we are live. I'm here with my new friend, Lindsey. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Nice to meet you finally. I think you booked, if I'm not mistaken, you booked this like more than a month ago. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I think I was kind of at the end of the year, kind of looking for some things to do, and our schedules just didn't quite line up until now.
Yeah, well, because of Podmatch, I've been booked, like my schedule's been booked because I work full time. This isn't my full-time gig. I just work full time.
Yeah.
So, before we dive into, what you're doing today, I always ask the guest to go right back to the beginning to childhood. How were you raised in terms of faith, philosophy, or practices?
Yeah.
And walk us through the whole journey if you don't mind. And then we'll focus on you today, what you're doing. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I give too much detail, tell me to stop.
No, no, no.
So you know how people are when they start telling stories. So yeah, I live in Georgia. I
Okay,
was
too
born
much
and
information. This is too much. I can't let you go on. I can't let you
uh-huh.
go on. I have to say something. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So yeah, here in Georgia, kind of as in lots of small little rural southern towns. When I was growing up, pretty much the only traditions that you saw represented in town were Baptists or Methodists. Those were your options. And I took moving to Florida when I was in middle school to even learn kind of the wide breadth of different options that people have when it comes to faith. So I was born in a real small town. We moved to a second one when I was about 4 years old. So we started off Baptist, and then when we moved, we didn't like the Baptist church, so we were Methodist because those are your options. And so I was formed kind of where I consider to be my beginning years, really, in the United Methodist Church, in a really small little church in Nashville, Georgia. So that is where I kind of came up, as a kid doing vacation Bible school, Sunday school, all of those various different things. And then when we moved to Florida when I was 11, there's a much more diverse group of people who were living in the town that we were in, and a lot more churches. And we started going to the United Methodist Church because that's what I was confirmed there. That's what our family did, and it just wasn't a good fit in particular. And so it became my mom's mission to figure out, okay, if this is not our church, where should we be going? So we did a fair amount of hopping around the first few years that we lived in Florida. We went to the Protestant church, we went to the Baptist church, we went to the Methodist church. We kept finding some non-denominational churches because that was a thing that was really coming up big. And eventually, the where we got to is my mom actually called a former preacher of hers and said, "We have tried every single church in this town. We cannot figure out where we're supposed to go." And he said, "Well, the Methodist church came out of the Episcopal church at the very beginning. Have you tried going to an Episcopal church?" And we hadn't. We'd not tried anything that was on the more liturgical side of worship before. My mom was somewhat familiar with that kind of style because she had grown up Lutheran. Her dad his family had come from Germany, back through Ellis Island and all of that. So um, we hadn't tried anything liturgical though, because my brother and I had no experience with that. My dad grew up as farm boy in South Georgia, and so we gave it a try, and that was absolutely the right match for our family. It was very, very different. I think I was probably the one who struggled with it the most, because my brother's a little bit younger than me. So at a certain point, you're still following along doing what your parents tell you to do. But I was old enough that I was thinking critically and saying, I don't like all of this standing up and sitting down and kneeling. And what are we doing? And I don't understand the words. And why are the prayers all written down in the bulletin? What's this book thing that we're looking at? So it was a little hard for me. And so I still was a little bit adrift, even though my family wound up joining the Episcopal Church at that point. And so in high school, I went to, all of my friends' different churches. There were all of the lock-ins and the youth groups. I used to go to a summer camp that was non-denominational, but it kind of in Presbyterian roots. So my faith had always been a part kind of that I was winding through. It was always there. But as far as religious background, I really didn't find any grounding on my own at that point. I still would go to church with my family, but it didn't feel like my church. So then when I went to college, I was still didn't have a church home at that point. I had a few different groups that kind of served as a church home for me. In particular, I was a part of a Christian drama troupe all 4 years of college and undergrad. So that really was my faith home. And as I came out of college and was really wanting to find what my church home was and kind of like very intentionally started looking for that, funny enough, I made my way back to the Episcopal Church, and that ultimately is the church that I decided to be confirmed in. I actually went home and joined my parents' church. Like I took a vacation from my job and went home for an intensive weekend confirmation course that they did. And it's really funny because I'm full-time employed by the Episcopal Church. I went to an Episcopal seminary, and I am currently in the final stages of my Doctor of Ministry doing research within the Episcopal Church.
Oh, yeah.
So as we start at the beginning and I'm kind of winding all around and still not happy, like my life is surrounded by the Episcopal Church now. So kind of, I guess, dive in head first with both feet,
Wow.
whatever metaphor you want to use.
Cool.
So yeah, that's my little windy version of getting to where I'm at now.
Well, it's not too windy because it's all Christian, isn't it?
Yes, that is certainly true.
So it wasn't like some of my guests where they were like a Hindu and then a Mormon and then a Christian
Yeah.
or whatever. But no, that's cool. So how is your so let me get this straight. Is this like, what are you gonna be when you grow up or whatever? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
What are you done with your schooling, or what you said you're in the middle of it? You're almost done.
So the doctorate, it's a 3-year program, and I'm about 70 days out from graduation.
What do they call it? MDiv? Is it MDiv or?
So that's the master's level. MDiv would be a Master of Divinity.
Okay.
There's also that particular degree is really focused on the practical elements of the study. So people who are looking to become ordained typically will go and get an MDiv.
Okay.
There's also a similar degree, but without all of the like continuing education, contextual education portion of things. There's a Master of Theological Studies. So I got my MTS back in 2018.
Okay.
And I'm now currently working on my Doctor of Ministry. So
what's the nickname for that?
Demon.
Okay. Demon?
D-Min.
Okay.
Like Doctor of Ministry.
Okay, not demon. Okay.
So it's funny because I went to undergrad at Wake Forest, so I'm a demon deacon. That was our mascot. So gotta love it.
Pretty cool. So wow. So yeah, I mean, you told the story pretty fast. So it was like you jammed a lot in there, but I want to go back and sort of figure out within your heart when you said, okay, like you touched on it very briefly, but I want to sort of feel the struggle, like when you said, okay, I'm going to commit to this, because it's quite a commitment that you've made. Really, you made it seem very casual, but it's a big commitment, no?
Well, and it's, I didn't know this is where it was going to end up in the end. It's one of those things where it very much is you take the right next step and then you pause and figure out where's the next step supposed to be. Okay. And once you get to the end, it looks very linear, but it does not feel that way in the middle of it. So,
is anyone surprised in your family that?
Not a single bit.
No.
None of my family has ever been surprised that this has kind of been my field of study. My close friends are not surprised in the least. It's interesting because most people who go this far in their theological education are people who are often looking to become ministers, priests, preachers, ordination of some kind. And that has never felt like my call. So that often winds up being the thing that's a challenge, is that my close friends and family know me very well. And so this makes perfect sense to them. But everybody else who knows me somewhat tangentially always says, oh, so you're going back to get your, your MTS or your DMin or whatever it is that you're doing. That's so fantastic. Does that mean that you're going to become a priest? It's the number one thing that everybody assumes. And it's actually kind of really annoying because there is a massive commitment that that the church overall, large arching church, not any particular denomination, it's for people of faith of all different levels of ordination. The largest portion of the people who are a part of the church, the largest number of people are the people who are not ordained. The church is not just for people who have some sort of professional calling to a particular kind of ministry. And so the assumption that, oh, you are somebody who has a very strong faith and a very personal conviction about going further in studying this, that must mean that you have this one particular end in mind. And for me, that feels like a very small way to look at the way that God has created us, to assume that only people who have this one particular vocation might be willing or interested in going through a further education. I don't like to put God in a box like that. That just doesn't feel right to me. So yeah, my close friends have not been surprised at all that this is where I'm at. But I always get the question, oh, does this mean you're becoming a priest? And it's like, why does that have to be the first thing everybody thinks? No, that's not what I'm doing. And there's nothing wrong with
Well,
that.
that segues perfectly to my next question. So you got your demon.
Yes.
So the burning question is, are you going to become a priest?
Right, exactly. Thank you for asking.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Yes, I do listen when you're speaking. So that was just a joke. Next stupid question I have for you is that CGI behind you? Is that real life?
Yep, that's real.
That's real life? Can you reach back and touch it to prove it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what you want? You want a handle?
Pull out a book. Wow. Oh, that's such good AI.
Yeah.
Top tier.
Here over is all theology and religion.
It's amazing.
And then the rest is kind of literature.
It looks so good. It looks so good. I thought it was like a backdrop because it looks so friggin' good.
Yeah. There you go.
It's amazing. I mean, did the shelves come with those lights or did you add that?
Actually, when we purchased this house, it didn't even have the bookcase. So this was all I kind of designed this and had somebody build it for us. And we added the lighting. So,
wow. Yeah. Any are the shelves starting to buckle a bit or no?
Oh, no. They're real good, strong construction. Good. They were built knowing that they were going to have a lot of books on them.
That's my pet peeve. My pet peeve with bookshelves is they're gonna sag in the middle. I hate that.
They were never intended to have anything but books on them. So yeah.
So you don't have a cat, in other words, what you're saying. You don't have a cat.
Yeah, I have 2 dogs. They stay on the ground.
That's good. Wow. Well, I'm kind of tempted to ask you about a lot of the books because I've been reading the spines as you've been talking to me. I'm listening, but I'm also reading the spines of your books. So maybe we'll do that a bit later on. I'll ask you about some of those books there, and you can talk about some of your favorites if you want. But I couldn't help but notice, I didn't really want to find out about you, but I couldn't help but notice that you have some kind of skill when it comes to decluttering or organizing. Is that true? What's the story?
Yeah, so my full-time work, I work full-time for a small church-related foundation that's a part of the Episcopal Church. And then on the evenings and weekends, I have my own kind of side gig. I run a business called Get Organized, Y'all. And I do organizing, like physical organizing, productivity consulting, and budget coaching with people, kind of helping them to really kind of intentionally move through those areas of their lives. For me, it's a very spiritual thing, even though that's not spiritual work for my clients necessarily. But for me, it's how can we possibly be the people that God has created us to be if there's all this other stuff in the way? And so what is the process of kind of defining what it is that's important to you, what your calling is, and how are you able to then align the physical things that you own and kind of your digital spaces, your mental spaces, your finances, so that they support you living into your calling. Cool. That's kind of the side gig. So yeah, I come by the organized books, honestly.
Yeah, well, I was just as I've been listening and staring at your bookshelf, I've been just thinking about how I would organize it. Like, I mean, just like I have a couple of different ideas about how I would do it. But I might be a little bit OCD. I've never been diagnosed with anything, but I might have a few mental disorders.
They're in Library of Congress call number order.
Seriously?
Yep.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. What are those 2 white boxes up on sort of the theological side there?
So over here, it's a book box set that opens up. So instead
Oh,
of it's called the Divine Hours. It's Phyllis Tickle did a kind of
oh, no way.
it's different seasons, kind
Oh,
of a daily devotional. So
oh,
since they came in the box, I decided to keep them in the box. So
ah,
so if you open it up, it's got books inside. So
oh,
yeah,
very cool. Wow, very cool. So, yeah, so I'm impressed. I'm excited and impressed that you're, well, first of all, that you're Christian, and that you're diving into it, and it's a big part of your life. So, one of the things I asked to my Christian guests is about the prayer life. So, I mean, it's kind of a deep subject and could be considered personal, but just wondering how you do it. 'Cause, I'm Catholic, right? And the Episcopal
yeah,
and the Catholic aren't too far off. But
yeah.
we do have set prayers, so I'm just wondering if you can share with me and my audience sort of your favorite prayers, and when do you just go completely freestyle, and when are you by the book, and do you have morning and evening prayers, or just talk about prayer life?
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, that's one of the things I think that was a big stumbling block is not the right word, but that kind of a thing
Challenge.
that held me back. Yeah, a challenge when I was first joining the Episcopal Church, when I was first exploring what was the Episcopal Church, because as somebody who came primarily from this small little background of all of these kind of borderline evangelical, because if you're in the South,
Uh-huh.
that's kind of the Baptist and United Methodist
Okay.
is. There was just this kind of ethos, this kind of atmosphere of if you are true to faith, if it's if God's really speaking to you, if you've got a relationship with Jesus, then you're going to be able to pray extemporaneously so easily, and you need to have these quiet moments, and there needs to be this. You need to make this decision that you're committed to God, and you'll know that you've turned your life, and it all of that ultimately actually I don't relate to at all, but that's all I knew when I was younger. And so when we first started going to the Episcopal Church, I was really confused because here's this, all of these prayers that are all written by other people, and how could they possibly be prayers that I would have any connection to because I'm just reading what somebody else wrote. And so that was a really big challenge for me when I first kind of came to the church. And I would actually say that that's one of my favorite things about the Episcopal Church now is the Book of Common Prayer and kind of
Oh,
this
beautiful,
larger
beautiful.
kind of body of work that we have as all these resources that we have as the church, which is built. I mean, if you read the Book of Common Prayer and then you go read some scripture, you're going to start hearing the same things over and over again. It is a book that was written or compiled by so many different writers with scripture in mind, with early church fathers in mind. There's just so much rich church history that's there. But then there's also this kind of, from the Episcopal Church's perspective, this how do we take this and make it relevant for today? How do we continue growing and refining and editing and revising as we grow as a church, as we learn more, as we have new language that we are utilizing just in general society? How do we make sure that we're speaking about people in a way that reflects the fullness of who God is? So, with all of that in mind, it's both a very ancient text and a very contemporary text at the same time. And I get a lot of comfort knowing that I'm praying things that people have prayed for hundreds of years, and that I'm praying things that other people across the world are also praying at the same time. Um, and I just really truly listen when I am praying. It's not sitting there rote reciting something, which is what I think I was initially thinking the Book of Common Prayer was. It's we're not creative enough to have our own prayers, so we'll just read these that other people said. Um, and then in my, as I slowly kind of learned more about what is the Episcopal Church, what is the Book of Common Prayer, what are these prayers, where they came from, my perspective drastically changed on that. And so there's a lot that I get from the Book of Common Prayer. So with that in mind, kind of the things that really do encompass my prayer life, the seminary that I went to is an Anglo-Catholic seminary. It has very rigid rule of life as a part of kind of not firmly Benedictine, but very much a nod towards Benedictine spirituality. You're required to do morning prayer and evening prayer as a part of their time in residence there, which I did a hybrid program. So I would be in residence for a week, and then I'd go home for the rest of the quarter. And then so 4 weeks out of the year for 3 years. So it was like kind of a regular retreat, if you will, as a part of that study. And I learned to really grow and understand and appreciate having those hours as a part of the day. It's not something that I find in my own time that I can keep up with such a strict schedule, but I got so much out of it that I have kind of actively been seeking ways that I can incorporate at least morning and evening prayer into my day. And kind of the evenings have been hard. That's just personal, like habit building challenge of mine, is trying to get the evening part underway. But the mornings, I have discovered that there's an organization that's a part of the Episcopal Church called Forward Movement. They provide a lot of resources, books and things like that. And they have a podcast that does morning prayer every day.
Oh,
And so that is my morning prayer practice, is actually to do morning prayer along with the podcast. I found that trying to do it on my own, I was never able to be consistent with it, but by doing it with the podcast, I will do it every single day. So that's been kind of that side of things. I also have dabbled over the years, and I'm not done dabbling, because I'm convinced that this is something that will add a lot to my life if I could just get the habit down. But I've been trying to work on practicing the examen as a part of my evenings.
oh,
So really trying
wow.
to get myself to do it. It's
Oh.
definitely about the habit, not about the value of the practice. When I can commit to it, it's great. So,
Wow.
um,
Can you just walk me through your version of the examen? Because
well, it's
I do a quickie version at night.
yeah. I don't know that I have my version. I have tried a few different versions,
Okay, well
trying to figure out how to get it.
just tell
Okay.
me sort of from memory, if you can,
Yeah.
what the parts of it are, from your understanding and from what you can
Yeah.
recall.
So kind of super broad. It's ground yourself in time with God, ask yourself particular questions, and close in prayer. Ultimate, like at the very, very basic level. One of the things that I have continued kind of changing up and still haven't found what feels right to me is, what are those questions
Hmm.
that I should be asking myself? I've heard, have some time of confession and some time of supplication. I've heard, have, where did you find God today? Where did you not find God today? Where did you experience love today? Where did you not experience love? I've heard all of these different variations. I've got a few different books that are here, different questions you could ask.
Ah.
So I still haven't quite settled there
Hmm.
yet. But as far as kind of the overarching practice, I've actually kind of merged examine a little bit with evening prayer, or
Hmm.
actually more specifically Compline, as a way to
Okay.
have that practice. So I've got prayers that I've pulled out of the Book of Common Prayer, that I've got kind of the outline for Compline, and then various different collects that I will have kind of created my own prayer cycle. So it's throughout the week, I would pray for different things that are a part of our life, whether it's, this particular day I'm praying for our country, and this particular day I'm praying for the people in my community. On this day, I'm praying for the earth and the things that are going on, kind of either with the people in the earth or the actual, environment itself. And really kind of saying, here's the fullness of human life, and how are we able to keep all of these elements top of mind, and kind of doing that in a bit of a cyclical nature. So yeah, taking kind of the Book of Common Prayer and this practice of examine from Ignatian spirituality. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
still haven't set anything though. That's the one that it's evenings are hard. I'm tired. So
I
yeah.
understand. I understand. Well, I'm always, it's the last thing, actually I do it in bed. I do the examen in bed, and I talked to a Jesuit priest, and he said, "Hey, maybe you could do it before you get into bed." I'm like, "Yeah, I know
Yeah.
I could, but I don't."
But will it actually happen if you do?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm very lazy, and I'm not making excuses. That's not a good excuse. Hey, why don't you pray? Well, oh, because I'm lazy. Oh, okay, no problem. But I do pray every day. I do my set prayers and spontaneous prayers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the spontaneous prayers are very, very simple. It's just sometimes wordless. Like the wordless prayers are the best for me, because I'm sick of
Well,
all the banter, all the banter in my head. It's like,
yeah.
shut up.
And I do find that for me, one of the things that I really strongly connect with is the concept of always be praying,
Yeah,
pray
yeah,
without ceasing. And so
yeah.
it's there are a lot of things that I do in my life. I'm single and I live by myself. So there are things in my day-to-day life where it's, as I am like watering the plants, it's a borderline prayerful practice for me. I'm not thinking any particular words, but it's caring for something with kind of this prayerful posture in mind. Or one of the ways that I often connect with God is if I'm cooking, like if I take the time to stop and cook something or bake something, I'm not just fixing a meal to go and eat while I'm working, but I'm actually creating something. That to me feels like a very contemplative, prayerful practice.
You could actually cook your houseplants, then you wouldn't need to water them anymore.
I mean, I don't know if they'd be very good, but okay. So,
That's how my mind
uh,
works. Just like reduce
yeah,
the amount of tasks I got to do. But that's very cool. Yeah, yeah. It's a very Eastern approach to awareness and just being in the moment, being in the now, and being in the present, and all that sort of thing. A lot of my guests that I've met on Podmatch have been New Age and
yeah,
Eastern thought, Hindu, Buddhist, that kind of influence, and lovely people. But I strongly disagree with the fundamental metaphysics of
yeah.
their belief system.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because when I'm doing my work with clients around organizing, the method that I use is I'm certified by Marie Kondo. So I'm doing Marie Kondo's
I don't know
KonMari
that.
method, which Marie Kondo ultimately is the whole like spark joy thing.
Okay.
And so with Marie Kondo, her if you read through kind of her materials and her books and kind of get a sense of her spirituality that comes through her method, it's becomes quite obvious that before she started doing all of this organizing professionally, she worked in a Shinto temple. It's there's very much kind of this
Mhm.
very specific Eastern ideology that is the
Mhm.
undercurrent of her practice.
Yeah.
But what I find is that it's very much based in intention, and I think that intention is prayer. Maybe that's just an oversimplification, but intention is, what is it that God wants for me in my life? What is it that I can do to serve God and serve other people? How can I best align my life with my calling, with my faith? And by doing that intentionally, it's a way to serve God. And so, even though her background is very much not a Christian background, I find that the work I do in decluttering and organizing for me is very much a spiritual practice. And not only that, the working with other people, it almost feels like a chaplaincy in a lot of ways, helping people to process what they're going through. I'm not, a trained therapist or anything like that, and I'm very clear about that, but the process that you go through to kind of align what you own with what you believe, to me feels like a very deeply spiritual practice. And I find that kind of shepherding people along through that often feels like a chaplaincy practice, and what we're doing. So
Awkward question.
yeah.
How much do you charge, and how the hell did you decide how much to charge?
Yeah, no, so I have like various different ways that I work with people, so the
Okay.
pricing kind of varies.
Okay.
A lot of people are looking to kind of really do their whole house, and so it becomes this process of, it might be 10 sessions for some people. I have had clients that have done close to 50 sessions, so it really can scale depending on
Wow.
who you are and kind of how you want to go through that process. But yeah, I think that for me, I have worked with people on a variety of pay scales based on kind of what is the need. So there are some people that I've worked with for completely free. There are people that I charge my full rate to. It just kind of really depends on what the situation is. But that being said, I find that there's so much that you can do to help people get to the point where they don't need to hire you again, if that makes sense. The goal is not to say, "Oh, you need my help, you need me to keep coming back." It's not about me helping, it's not about me doing the work for them. It's about me teaching them how to do it for themselves. So hopefully my goal is to like work myself out of a job at that point.
The
It's
whole
it's I
world will
want
be organized.
I want you to know how to go through this process for yourself so that you will live the rest of your life with the intention and being able to serve that. It doesn't do me any good to say, "Oh, and you're going to need to keep hiring me for the rest of your
Yeah.
life." That's stupid.
So,
So,
what are the just three essential bullet points, just quickie elevator pitch on some of the principles of decluttering and organizing.
Yeah. So I kind of talk about the KonMari method because there are like literal bullet points on that one. So essentially, the way that the method works is that first you define your vision. What is your idea of what your ideal life is? Because that's going to be the metric that we use throughout the entire process. Is this vision that you have for your life? What sparks joy for you? And that's the shorthand. Everybody talks about sparking joy. It's really the things in your life are the things that help you to get to where you want in life. The vision that you've got, if your items get you there, they spark joy. If they don't, then they don't spark joy. So define your vision. Then we're going to go through all of the things that you own. We're going to do it in kind of a systematic way so that we are working from the things that are easier to sort through to the things that are harder to sort through. And so we'll go through the big bucket categories: clothing, followed by books, followed by paper, followed by kimono, which is essentially, it's the Japanese word for miscellaneous. It's basically everything else in your house. And then the fifth and final category is sentimental items. So we're going to work through those things in order of difficulty, and we're going to ask along the way, does this spark joy? Does this serve my vision for my life? And if it does, then you keep it. And if it doesn't, you let it go. A lot of people sometimes confuse KonMari with minimalism, and I think they're very complementary methods, but you do not have to be a minimalist to do the KonMari method by any stretch of the imagination. And then once you have decluttered, then you organize. There's no point in saying, let's buy a whole bunch of pretty shiny bins and put things in nice little boxes and order it if half the things in those bins are things you don't actually need. So we don't actually start organizing anything until we've already done the decluttering, because ultimately we often get rid of enough things that the organizing becomes very simple, and it becomes a matter of, where do I use this item, and is it stored in a way that makes it so that I use it more easily. So
what's in those little flat boxes over
over
on
there?
The bottom shelf? Yeah, on the bottom shelf. Yeah, the bottom
Well,
shelf beside the watchman, like on the other side of the barrier from the watchman.
Oh, that's one of them is full of empty printer paper, and the other one has my stamps and like stapler opener thing. It's full of like
office supplies. Stuff. So basically, office supplies is the short answer.
Yeah, but for my full-time job for work. So that because they literally came home from the office.
And what's stacked on top of those magazines, or?
Yeah, some of those are magazines, and then a few of them are like the little alumni stuff that you get from college. That is like the to-do pile over there, honestly.
I was just gonna say, like that's borderline clutter. Like, I mean, that's like,
it's very neatly organized. Yes,
I'm just giving you a hard time.
When you're staring down the barrel of your doctorate degree,
I'm kidding.
Piles that you didn't know that you were going to have.
I'm kidding. But it is kind of funny to think about if that's like the maximum clutter that you have in your life. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, it's an interesting aspect of life, and I do, like I said, I might be a little bit OCD when it comes to organizing, because at work I've got a desk, and I share an office with my boss, and his desk is full of piles and piles of junk and papers and pens and everything. And my desk is always exactly the same every day. I keep my pencil here. I got my stapler here. I got the tape here. I got everything I need. I've got my 4 screens and everything's, I clean my keyboard, I clean my mouse. And, it's like everything, I know exactly where everything is. And so my boss, when he needs a pen, he comes to me because he always knows where I keep everything organized, right? But I always get nervous when he reaches for my pencil, because I have my favorite pencil on the side. But I try to be detached also, like, okay, like I have to let the chaos, I have to live with the chaos, right? Like, so but yeah, there is a tendency in me that I want order.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit of a nervous disposition too. So when it comes to the psychology of your clients, I mean, you have to be very delicate and accommodating, obviously. And someone might be deeply disturbed and they just really want to have order, and like they're over the top with that obsession. Not that I am, but some people might be. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, and honestly, I think it speaks to the power of Marie's method that she's developed. It's extremely flexible.
Okay.
So if the thing that will, if you're thinking through what your vision is for your life and how to align what you have with that, then I think that there's places where if having a literal specific home for every individual item so that you always know where everything is, if you're going to be able to be your best self by having that in place, then that is what sparks joy for you. And that's what we work towards.
Okay.
If that in and of itself, the process of getting to that is something that is anxiety inducing for you, then that's not what sparks joy for you. Something else sparks joy for you. Let's figure out what that is and we'll work towards that. So it's not a here is what it's supposed to look like. Let's make your stuff look this way.
Mm-hmm.
The whole method is driven by, well, what do you want it to look like? And let's intentionally work towards your goal as opposed to trying to make it look like what somebody else has decided is the right thing. So it really is that kind of all comes down to the work that you do at the very beginning that continues to develop over the process of saying, what do you want? What is your vision? What would success look like? Where are we headed? And actually actively using that at every single session as we're doing this work.
Yeah, there's a very, very important negative point that needs to be made here. Okay, a reality that we need to deal with. You need to deal with this, which is that it's not just me and my will, what I want, because I got a wife and I got this boss and he wants things done his way. And, I got colleagues at work and, it's like, I can't get my way. I'm not going to get my way. I'm not going to get my way at home and I'm not going to get my way at work. So there's a sort of thing where it's just like, I'm just waiting to go to the next world, where I can be happy, because I'm not going to be happy here because I'm not going to get my way here. Not at home, not at work.
And that's where I would push against one of my clients. And I would say, well, let's stop and talk about that. And when you really think about it,
quit my job and get a divorce. There you go.
No. What sparks joy for you at home? What is the thing that really ultimately is a part of your vision? Is the most important thing to you my desk looking a certain way? Or is it finding a way to habitate a space with someone that you care about very deeply? And we figure out it's the easy example I give people is I say, well, my bills don't spark joy, so I should just throw them all away, right? And I say, well, let's stop and reframe that a little bit. Do you like having water come out of the faucet when you turn it on? Do you like having the lights on?
This is the iron fist in the velvet glove is being revealed here. Okay, this is cool.
So it's like, let's
we can hire you. I could hire you as a dominatrix too, probably.
Right? But does your toothbrush spark joy? Well, does having healthy, clean teeth spark joy? If so, then the toothbrush is the tool by which you get there. So
does anyone
it's one of those things where spark joy doesn't mean make me happy. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for overall what is your vision for your life? What does that look like overall? And how do you support that through all areas of your life?
Does anyone give a negative reaction? Like, no, I don't want to be an adult. I want to stay a kid.
I mean, like sometimes we have those moments and then we acknowledge that they exist and then we keep going. So yeah, I'm not saying it's an easy process. It's a process where you're confronting a lot of stuff. There are old beliefs that you've got, there are old hurt feelings that are there, relationships that are really challenging. All of that comes up through the decluttering process.
Wow.
But that doesn't make it an insurmountable process. And ultimately, I get finished with people. It's happened several times now. I've had people finish the decluttering process and then realize that actually now that everything around them sparks joy, they cannot any longer deny the fact that their marriage does not spark joy for them anymore, or that their current job does not spark joy for them anymore. When you get the noise and clutter out, then you have this, what you want, and you see where other areas of your life are not aligning to that. And so sometimes I am so excited and passionate about this hobby and I don't ever spend any time on it, I need to declutter some commitments so that I can do this
Uh-huh.
thing I really love and enjoy. And
Wow.
so it becomes this effort of really awakening your whole life up as a part of that process. So it starts off with, yeah, there's piles of clothing and books, and there's things that you don't want to deal with, but it ultimately can lead to this really intentional way of living that for me I find really aligns with my faith. So those are kind of the things that I see sometimes with my clients is really big challenges and questions that they start to then confront and really think about.
It's amazing, it's amazing to me how deep uh your hobby is, your side hustle is. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. And I wonder if your family and friends, they realize the depth of it.
I think that we all were a little surprised, to be perfectly honest, at the
Uh-huh.
beginning. Like it really was a Lindsay's good at organizing things, and she's run out of friends to go and organize their houses. Maybe she can get paid to do it. That's kind of what started it. Um, but at this point, like I see all of it. The work that I do actually for the church, the work that I do in this business, who I am as a person, the things that I'm a part of kind of outside of my work, all of that to me, it's all who I am, and all is who I relate to the rest of the world as, and it's all who God has created me to be. So I see it as all connected. And I think that when I say, oh, yeah, I'm going to go do a doctorate now in ministry, and the thing that I'm going to be studying is spirituality, it's not surprising to anybody who knows me well. That's, oh, well, yeah, of course you're going to go do that. So, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty wild. So, well, congratulations, first of all, for all that, all your life choices. Seems like you're making good life choices. Are you
I
do you feel like you're going to have a husband and kids?
It's one of those things that I always thought was going to be a part of my life.
Uh-huh.
Um, and as I've gotten older, it is something I would love to have, but I am okay if that is not a part of my life.
Oh yeah.
That has actually been a bit of a faith journey in and of itself. I work in a church which largely has people who are either already married or who are old enough to be my parents. And the job that I had prior to that, I have kind of a career in nonprofit. And so the positions I had before that, really the biggest position I had was at a theater, which means that everybody I worked with was, I'm straight. So everybody I worked with was either another woman, which is not helpful, or they were all gay men. So like there was no, where am I supposedly meeting this future husband? And how does that work? And so I used to stress about that a lot because I always, when you're a little kid and you're growing up and you're thinking, what am I going to do when I grow up? The answer changed a million times, but the part that was always consistent was that I was going to be a mom. And so for me, that has been a bit of a journey myself in being okay with the fact that maybe that's not what is in my life. Like maybe that's not where I'm called to be. But there are so many people that I do get to have deep relationships with outside of any notion of kind of a romantic relationship or that parental relationship. So I don't feel as though there is something missing from my life. And that's a different answer than I probably would have given you about 10 years ago.
Wow.
So it's, I would love for that to be a part of my future. I don't see how that's going to happen. So I'm okay if it's not.
Hmm.
It's not something that I stress about.
Is it rude to ask how old you are? Or is
I will be
2024?
I will be 40 in June, so
There you go. Wow, the big 40.
I'm very
Okay.
excited about
Yeah.
that.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, it's not too late. You still have the eggs and all that. You're still ovulating.
Literally, they are frozen. Yes. So,
Really?
yeah, I did that in my mid 30s. Yeah.
Seriously?
Uh-huh. I did.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
Wow.
it's my if that is where I'm supposed to be and I have the ability to do that,
Do you have to
then I want
rent
to be
do you have to
there.
rent storage for that?
Yeah, I got to pay rent once a year,
How
so
much?
$400. So
400 a year. That's pretty good. That's
it's not
not
so
bad.
bad.
That's not so
Yeah.
bad.
And then ultimately, if there's not somebody who's meant to be in my life in that particular way,
Yeah.
then they kind of set it up so that if you don't wind up using them, you can actually donate them to the facility. Because if you think about it, people who are learning how to do in vitro,
Uh-huh.
they have to have something to practice with.
Yeah. This is strictly
And
forbidden
so
by the
that's
Catholic Church, by the way. It's all strictly forbidden, but
Well, yeah, the Episcopal Church is good with it. So, um, but
So
it's
how
so
many
that's
eggs?
kind
How
of
many eggs did you freeze?
I want to say there were 25, maybe. So, which is a lot,
They
they
don't come
say.
by the
So,
dozen. When I buy eggs, they come in a dozen
I
usually.
know, right?
So,
Yeah.
how big is one egg?
I mean, there's one cell.
Uh,
An egg is a single cell,
Pretty
so
small.
they're microscopic. Yeah.
Can't see with the visible eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty
So,
wild.
yeah.
So yeah, I knew that, by the way. Just just hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you just kind of like don't think about it. You're like, oh yeah, that would be tiny.
And you get one or two per menstrual cycle that come.
Typically it's one.
Some,
Obviously, there are
oh, you could
people
have
who
twins if you have two. Is that
yes.
a kind of
The way
twin?
that it works is actually there's so much about this that I didn't know until they're like, and here's what we're gonna do with you, and I'm like, wait, that's how that works. Actually, I think that there's like there's one that releases in the way that we think of it, but there are multiple that actually are being released.
I see.
It's like
It's a race.
they say that. So if you think about it, oh, you release one a month for this many years, so you've got what, a couple thousand, right?
Yeah.
You have multiple millions that you are born with, and
Oh.
so there's this like winnowing process that happens where
Okay.
like this many gets this far, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then ultimately you get down to there's one available to be fertilized.
Wow.
But when you say how many are released, there's stages to what do you mean by that. So
wow.
I was very much unprepared for the answers I got when we went through the process of figuring all that out. I was like, oh, I did not know that. Great, thanks.
Wow. So just to stay on the topic a little bit longer because it fascinates me.
Yeah.
What kind of guy do you like? What kind of guys are you attracted to?
It's interesting because I haven't actually been in a relationship in over 10 years.
Okay.
So,
yeah, but you see guys, I mean, you must be attracted to them.
I mean, I guess it's,
tall, beard, no beard, like
I mean, the two serious relationships I had they were both over 6 feet tall, so we can say tall. I am a really big nerd. Like I'm obsessed with like Star Wars and Harry Potter and all that kind of stuff. So it's people who are into things that I'm into. I'm not a particularly sporty person.
Show me your mug. Show me your mug there.
Oh yeah, this is one of the many. Is it? Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah,
I've heard about that.
Ahsoka Tano, if you.
No, I don't. I don't know the culture. Yeah. I watched. I'm old enough that I could watch the original first Star Wars in the theaters. So.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
What number is that now?
Right after Return of the Jedi was released, so I never saw the original in the theaters. I saw them when they were re-released back in the 90s. But
what number is the first one now? Because they've renumbered everything.
Well, they haven't changed the numbers of anything.
So the one that I watched.
The very first one that came out in 1977 was always episode 4.
It was always episode 4? Did they tell me that when I went to the theater?
I can't remember. Is it in the crawl or not? I don't know if it is. The fifth one, Empire Strikes Back, definitely was marketed that way.
Okay.
The whole intention, George Lucas's intention, was that we're starting in the middle of a conflict. There's stuff that has happened before.
I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
And he had originally, back in the 70s, when he was kind of storyboarding the whole thing, he had always intended to go back and do the first 3 parts of the story. It just didn't come to fruition until a lot later, and the story changed probably a lot, I would imagine, by the time he got to actually releasing them. So yeah, no, it was always intended to be this in the middle of kind of a situation. What
do you think of Jar Jar Binks? You like him?
I've come around to Jar Jar Binks.
I always liked him.
He never was like bothersome for me the way that he seems to be for a lot of people, but I also wouldn't have said he was one of my favorite characters. And I think that as I have gotten older and have matured a bit, I actually see a lot of value in Jar Jar Binks. So I am one of those who's totally fine with him.
Did you know he's a Sith Lord? Did you know that?
I have heard that whole rumor, yes.
I don't know anything about the culture. I just saw this conspiracy theory video on YouTube, and it was hilarious and very convincing.
Yeah,
very convincing.
It's a funny theory, yeah. It's not true, but it's funny.
Yeah. So, what is your number one favorite Star Wars movie? How many movies are there now?
Well, depends on how you're defining them, because there are
Uh-huh.
movies outside of that saga.
Okay.
Episode 1, 2, 3, like that's the Skywalker saga. There are 9 movies. But then there's also Solo, which is about Han Solo 20 years before,
Oh.
the original Star Wars was released. And there's Rogue One, which is what happens to get the Death Star plans into Princess Leia's hands at the beginning. So there are other movies
Okay.
that are not a part of that saga of 9.
Wow, that's a lot of
So
movies. That's a lot of
yeah,
movies.
and a lot of TV shows now
You
too.
can't
So
you can't watch them all in one night. You have to like spend a week watching all this stuff.
you can do it in 2 days, because we've done it more than once.
Oh, are you
Got a nice
serious?
little spreadsheet that maps out how long and like what our bathroom breaks can be in between. Where do you break for the night? Yeah.
My friend Picris is saying there's also the Clone Wars. I don't know what that is.
Yes. So that's it was an animated series that has actually kind of like there's now spin-off series of it as well, one of which
Wow.
actually started on Wednesday. The 3rd season
Ah.
of Bad Batch just came out on Wednesday. But when I was mentioning the character that is on this mug, she's one of the main characters from the Clone Wars series. So she was Anakin Skywalker, who was Darth Vader. She was his Padawan, so his apprentice, before he became a bad guy. So
Are there
yeah,
other creatures like Yoda, or is he the only one of his species? Or
there are. We've only seen, I think we've only seen one in all of the things that we have seen. We still don't know what he is. We've never heard what his
is
species
he
is.
100% good or neutral or what?
Yoda, he is good. Yeah,
He's good. Yeah.
he's flawed because that is how people are. But
Uh,
he's good. He is a good guy.
he's humanoid. He's considered humanoid.
No,
No. Okay.
no, he's whatever species he is. It's a big question mark. We don't know what his
Okay.
species is called. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And of just with the 9, sticking with the 9,
Yes.
what are your top 3 favorites and why?
Number 1 would have to be Empire Strikes Back.
Ah, okay.
It's
Okay.
it's it's kind of
Is
the
that the
classic.
second one that was released?
Yes, that's the one that you would think of as the second one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of nostalgia that's there. I think, I watched it,
Uh,
I don't even know how many
uh,
times growing up. But
uh,
also in my mind, it's, this story of how this family is kind of like falling apart, and then they have to somehow find each other again. And there's all these monsters in the cave, and what's happening with Yoda. There's this swamp thing that's going. It's just there's so much. And that for me, I think really like the piece of me that really finds a lot of joy in stories, as somebody who is, created by a god who is told through stories, and who has, all of this creativity that created the world. We're created in his image. Then the whole concept of being interested in stories is something that for me is a very spiritual thing. And that for me, I think Empire Strikes Back was really the movie that kind of solidified that for me at a super young age. So there's a lot that goes into that makes Empire be it probably is my favorite movie of all time. So
oh,
yeah,
wow. Wow.
you know,
Do
it's
people
good stuff.
generally agree with you that that's in the top 5 kind of thing?
Empire does tend to be a favorite of a lot
Okay.
of people. That is not why it is one of my favorites, but a lot of
Yeah.
people do find that to be
That's
one of
cool.
yeah.
My bone to pick with the Force is that it's supposedly neutral, but in my Catholic worldview, everything is ontologically good because it was made by an all good God, and of course, everything evil is a result of sin, actual sin and original sin, and so that's quite a different story from this neutral force that's neither good
Yeah,
nor evil, So
yeah.
that kind of rubs me the wrong way. What about you?
I don't think of them in the same way,
Okay.
because ultimately in the world of Star Wars, it's a fictional world. It doesn't
Yeah.
actually exist. It's
Uh-huh.
not real, and therefore
Different
God
things.
is not a part of that world. Now,
Oh.
the humans
Ooh.
who created the world of Star Wars
Yeah.
are all a part of the real world. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like it's like imagine that God was not there,
Uh-huh. Okay.
then you could have something like a neutral force.
I see.
But to be perfectly honest, the way that my head goes when I start thinking about the force, and this is, I would never quote this to somebody as like doctrine or anything like that. But for me, when I was a little kid and I was trying to understand, like, I get God and I get Jesus, but I don't understand what is the Holy Spirit. For me, there was kind of this weird way that I was able to conceptualize just something like the Holy Spirit through this story that I knew was not real of the Force. So how something that we cannot see and cannot put our hands around can affect things in life, can be a part of the world, even if we can't physically experience it. That way of kind of understanding that God can be present and in the world and moving through creation, even if I don't have direct evidence of it, I was able to better kind of understand what was the Holy Spirit because of the Force, even though those are not the same thing, nor would I ever suggest that they are. So,
Of course, yeah, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
So we're gonna have to wrap it up, but I do want to just talk about some of your books behind you, just briefly.
Yeah.
What is your okay? First of all, not your favorite, but your most recent fiction read. What have you read that's fiction?
What did I read last? I don't know if you'll be able to see it. The top left corner. I think it might be cut off. But a fantasy novel, a Sarah J. Maas fantasy novel was the last fiction book I finished.
Are there a lot of female fantasy writers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. Some of it's young adult, some of it is adult. There's kind of this kind of genre piece to it.
Have you ever read Blaylock, I think it is?
Mm-mm.
He's a cyberpunk guy. Let me see if I got that right. Elfin Ship Blaylock, is that right? Did I say it right? Elfin Ship by James, I think it's James Blaylock. Yeah, James Blaylock. A friend of mine recommended this series to me. It's a fantasy thing. The author is Christian, but
cool.
There's no real Christian content from what I read. I read the first book in the series, and it started out really cute and it grabbed my attention. But because I haven't read fiction in so long, ever since I became a Catholic, a Christian, I've just been reading nonfiction. So much theology and the saints and everything. So because I'm not used to fiction, I really didn't have patience for it. I'm just like, why am I reading this? Or maybe it just that author didn't melt my butter. I don't know.
Yeah. I find that because I do a lot of nonfiction, really like academically rich stuff, that's a lot of my reading. That means that I have to balance it out with my brain somehow. So most of my fiction tends to be like, I call it brain candy. It's not necessarily good for you, but it's so delicious and you just devour it as quickly as you possibly can. So a lot of the fiction that I read is not necessarily like very high literary value by any stretch of the imagination. I'm okay with that. I'm not eating the Snickers bar thinking I'm getting my nutrients from it. I know what I'm eating. It's fine. Like so I kind of have both sides. I have like the very intellectual stuff and the very enjoyable stuff. So yeah.
Very cool. So now you've talked about the most recent, but what are just 2 or 3 of your all-time favorite fiction works?
So I actually read a lot of Star Wars fiction. So
is there some on your shelf there?
So you can't see it. I don't know if I can even.
It's locked away.
There's actually the room. This wall is all Star Wars. You can't. You can't see it.
Seriously?
It has a dedicated bookshelf.
Wow. Is it well lit like that one?
No, it's not. It's just like I bought it off Amazon, kind of a bookshelf. So I don't necessarily have like a favorite Star Wars novel, but I do enjoy reading Star Wars.
Is it fluff? Is it junk food reading, or is it?
It's some of it can be. Most of it's a little better than a lot of all of the fantasy and YA stuff that I read. Most of it is pretty fluffy. You
said YA. Is that young adult?
It is, yeah.
Because not every night, but most nights before bed, my wife reads to me from Nancy Drew, the original series.
Oh, fun! I haven't read Nancy Drew in probably 30 years.
With voices. She does a different voice for every character, and there are a lot of characters.
That's cute.
So
that's fun.
So that's pretty cool. That's a good service.
Yeah.
So very
Awesome.
cool to meet you. It's been an hour. I got to let you go because I got to work on this jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, go do your
It's
puzzle.
actually a mystery jigsaw puzzle. So you know what my talent is with puzzles is I do all the edges,
Yep.
and I do what I call seek and destroy.
Mhm.
Okay, seek and destroy is I'll pick up a piece that looks interesting, and I'll find out by looking at the picture where it goes. But this is a mystery puzzle. I can't do that, right? So
Oh
I don't know what
god,
the picture is. So
that would be hard.
and then there's another talent that I have with the puzzles, just in terms of strengths and weaknesses. My strengths are those two, plus the third strength I have is I do a shape analysis. So I actually
Hmm.
sort. My wife sorts
Oh
by color, but I sort by shape.
yeah.
I have little catchy nicknames for different shapes, right? So, guy with two heads, whatever. I just talk like I have little
Yeah.
names for these guys, but it drives my wife crazy because she spent all the time sorting into colors, and then
And then you go mix them all up.
sort it by shape. So it's like, this is right up your alley with your declutter organizing thing and the resolution of two wills battling.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
What's the solution? We get our own puzzle. Just do your own puzzle.
I don't know. Do you want to be speaking at the end of the night or not?
What's your experience like with the jigsaw puzzles?
So I haven't done a ton of them, but we actually did several of them over Christmas this past year. My
Oh,
family
no
did. We did
way.
I think 3 or 4 of them, and I was like, "Oh, this was really fun. We should do this more often." My challenge is that once you do it, well, then what?
You glue it to a
Like,
Bristol board and you hang it on the wall. That's what we do.
but that would not spark joy for me to have a house full of puzzles. You know what I mean? So it's like I guess we'll take it apart and put it back in the box and do it again later. Like that's where it gets hard. I need to find like a puzzle library so we can check them out and do them and then give them to somebody else and get another one. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. So do you do a Rubik's Cube or anything like that?
I have never been able to get a Rubik's Cube done. I've tried. I don't have the patience for it.
Uh,
That is not my strong suit.
you don't play chess either?
I've never been able to figure out how. I can play checkers. That's what I understand.
That's funny. So, I mean, I insult a lot of my female guests by saying that chess is a man's game, but there are a lot of good women players. There was a show I think my friend watched about a female
Yeah,
player.
Queen's Gambit. It was a good show.
He loved
Yeah.
it. He loved it, but he's not a
Yeah.
chess player, but pretty cool.
I can appreciate that chess is a very intricate game that requires a lot of strategy. I just don't have the patience for it. I'd
Yeah.
probably be fine if I could get together to do it, but it's just if I have finite time, that's not where
You
I'm going to
you
spend
never
it.
do games night with friends?
So when we have done games, we do things that are more like
Social
like
game?
a word strategy kind of a game. Or
Ah,
there was a
ah.
very short period of time where we did a Star Wars RPG, but then we lost our game master, so now we don't have anybody to do it with us. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
again,
Wow.
it goes back to the stories. You know, it's let's tell a story together. So yeah,
Was your character handcrafted or was it a cutout?
yeah. No,
Okay.
we all made our own characters. It was really
What was your
cool. Yeah.
character?
Oh gosh, it was years ago now. She was, if you're so in Star Wars, the species is called a Twi'lek. So you know the ones that are like multicolored that have the head tail
Yeah,
thingy.
yeah.
She was one of those,
Okay.
and she was actually somebody who had been a Jedi, but she had been in some sort of accident and did not remember her past. So she had the Force but didn't know it.
Uh,
So it was kind of that was her path is was that. So yeah,
oh, that's
pretty
pretty cool.
cool.
You don't remember her name?
I don't off the top of my head. This was like it was probably like 8 or 9 years ago now, but yeah, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
remember. So yeah, yeah.
Did you make any
So
drawings of her?
no, but I found pictures online because
Uh,
I personally am not artistic, but I was like, here's kind of what she looks like based on all these things I found online. So
I
yeah,
see a drama book. Did you actually do theater?
I was a theater major in undergrad. Yeah. So and then I
Oh.
went to grad school. The first time I was in grad school was actually to get a degree in performing arts
Oh yeah,
management.
you mentioned that you worked in the theater. You had all these lesbian friends and gay friends. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. So, does that come in handy with dealing with people?
I would say that there's so much that crosses over from theater into all other areas of life. You'll be a better public speaker.
Uh-huh.
You'll be able to handle kind of emergency situations and be good in a crisis because the being quick on your feet and thinking through things is a part of theater. You have to really be able to kind of strategize and manage multiple pieces of a production. And so that kind of overall project management skill is a big part of it. I learned way from my more from my theater major than I did from any of my other classes. So yeah,
Wow.
it's very applicable stuff, I think. I
Wow.
do better in everything that I do because I was a theater major. So yeah,
Wow. Very cool. Yeah,
yeah,
I took improv, and then I taught a little I co-hosted an improv course
so fun.
at
Yeah,
the local Mennonite church in the basement there.
yeah.
And it's fun. I like the improv stuff. But wow, very cool. So
Yeah,
congratulations on everything, and keep going.
thanks.
And very nice to meet you. And if you ever want to come back and chat some more, you know how to reach me. I think we're in touch by email, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So great meeting you, and God bless you. I hope you're gonna have success with all your Episcopalian stuff. Did I say that right? Did I say
Yeah,
that
you
right?
did.
That's Anglican, basically, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The Episcopal Church is the what became that was basically the Anglican Church in the United States.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
If you went to
So
England, you'd feel at home in the Church of England?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
We're a part of the Anglican Communion, which is the worldwide kind of all of the different.
okay.
So it's yeah,
A-
it's the same thing for all intents and purposes. Yeah.
And the Anglo-Catholics, are they straying, from your perspective, they're straying a little bit?
So it depends on how you're defined. If Anglo-Catholic is a adjective,
Uh,
there are Episcopal churches that are more Anglo-Catholic and some that are lower churches, and it's really
uh,
more about stylistic differences.
okay.
There are Anglican, what would the right word be? I don't know. Spinoff is the word that's coming to mind, but that's clearly not the right one. There's people that have come out of the Episcopal Church due to differences of opinion for various different reasons, who have formed other churches that they name as Anglican. Most of them are not a part of the Anglican Communion worldwide. So they're not recognized in the same way. So yeah, so that would be just kind of, that's all the ecclesiology around who is a part of the Anglican Church versus who's not. So yeah, there's
It's all very messy. It's all very messy stuff.
we're humans, of course it is.
But
It's yeah, that's
we're
how
praying
it
for
is.
unity. We're praying for unity. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
nice.
So there you go.
Excellent. So
Well,
thanks so
enjoy
much.
your puzzle. Have
Yeah, thank you
fun.
so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. God bless you. And just so you know, I do enroll all my guests in a perpetual mass. You're going to be getting extra graces coming your way.
Oh, I
Okay,
love that. That's lovely. Thank
you and
you.
your family. So
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
so please pray for me and mine too.
Absolutely. No, of course. Definitely.
So we'll
Will
talk
do.
soon. Keep in touch.
Sounds good.
God bless
Bye.
you. Bye bye.